Hi, hey, Mr. Keith Collins. Thank you so much for being on the show. How you doing today?
I'm doing well. How are you doing, Dan?
Good, good. Hey, it's been awesome to have you on the show because I've seen you all over social media. You just mentioned to me that you want to be one of the best known insurance person in the whole state of Minnesota, and you are a farmers insurance DM in Minnesota. And before we talk about a little bit about your district, yeah, just share us with us how you even got started in the business.
Yeah. So I moved down to St. Louis, and it was between phone sales and insurance sales. And Matt Wolk and his recruiter, Julie at the time, had me sold on, hey, you don't have to share your commission. So that was a big thing for me because I'm like, if you're selling it, you should get to keep it, right? The next piece was, okay, there's great earning potential, there's renewals in this business, and really it's a relationship business where you get to talk to a customer over a long period of time. So really got drawn to it, did well in Matt's district. He was kind enough to introduce me to Mark, so I got to work inside a district office, did well there, then became an agent in Mark's district and was really looking to become a district manager because I was doing a lot of, hey, this is how to run an agency or this is how to sell more life insurance, just those type of things. And I always loved seeing the light bulbs, whether it was staff or agents, just that light bulb, that eureka moment, like, oh, this is how I do it, and just see them apply it. It's still fulfilling to this day. So 2021, the end of 2020, came up here to Minnesota, and I was blessed with a really hardworking group of agents that were great agents, maybe not agency owners yet, but really see them grow into building a team of staff, building infrastructure around marketing, ROI, things of that nature that have been just totally foreign to them, and now applying it and being successful. It's awesome to see.
Cool. So you're originally from the St. Louis area?
I sure am.
Okay. And then you moved specifically to Minnesota for, to
Yep.
become a DM or before that?
So moved up to become a DM. So in
Okay.
the Rochester area.
Oh, nice. Well, that's a big move.
Heck yeah, the family was nice enough. I love snow. Uh, the kids love and hate snow, but the wife not so much. Big fan of the snow, but she was nice enough. She's traveled with me wherever I've gone, so she's my rock, and she's awesome. She's made this much easier than it could have been.
Wow. And then you have some pretty good people you worked with in the farmer's family.
Yeah, right. Like I've struck the jackpot when it came to it, because when you get recruited to the five-time district of the year and you know nothing different from excellence and just what your standards are supposed to be, it's way different, right? That's what you know, that's what you hold yourself to. And then getting to be around Mark, who's another great district manager, who is the best like treatment of people that you'll ever see. If you ever hear somebody talk about Mark, they'll run through a wall for him. I mean, those two really raised me through the farmer system, and I owe everything to them.
Oh, okay. But Mark's in Minnesota, right? So when you moved to Minnesota,
Oh no,
you
so that's Mark Lipke, Mark Lee. So really close in name. Mark Lee
oh,
will be
okay.
down in St. Louis. But yeah,
Oh,
two
okay,
great
okay.
marks.
Oh, I see. Okay. Awesome. Well, yeah. Tell me a little bit about were you in insurance prior to, working with Matt?
So no, I was actually in car sales.
Okay.
And that's where I learned kind of feature advantage benefit. So point out the feature, hey, look, this is nice. This is what it does, and like show them how it can be good for them. That's really how I was taught to sell, and I loved it, right? Because I sold Nissans, and they're great cars. But when I first sold Nissans, I knew nothing about them and didn't have that passion for them. Insurance, you can dive into 50 different things, and it was cool to jump into different coverages and see how they really help people. And you get to see it after the fact versus they drive off the lot, you never get to see it again, right?
Hmm. Yeah. You build a relationship. So, what do you think are some of the things that you took away from watching, Matt as a leader? And now that you're a district manager too, some of the things that you kind of took from that experience there.
I think I took a lot for granted, to be honest with you. Like when I saw Matt lead, he was always so calm. He's still calm to this day. Always has a smile. Great leader. But you don't know what's going on under the surface, right? Like there's hard times all around us, and there's always going to be like this thing that comes across your desk or your inbox, and knowing that when you're high performing, there's going to be that many more problems. I can only imagine what Matt was up against when he was doing that, and even now to this day. So I give him so much credit because Matt would never tell you like, "Hey, yeah, I got this amount of stuff." He would never put it on his agents, never put it up. He was always just pouring back into them, making sure that they became better business owners, and I try to model a lot of that. I mean, just let's focus on their problems. I got my own. I'll handle them.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, funny you say that. Because yeah, I got a kind of a problem going on here at my agency at this very moment. But yeah, you can't let your staff show that you're stressed or that you don't want to influence them in the fear, or not fear, but worry and stuff like that. But what are some of the challenges you kind of go through, Heath, as in
Oh,
your situation right now? Like right
that's
now,
a
like my top producer is he's told me and he's thinking about leaving. So that's just, something that we talked it out, and I'll be nice to him if he does, but still didn't really like totally convince him to stay, but it's like kind of, he's gonna make the decision over the weekend, so I'm kind of like thinking like what's gonna happen here. But what about you? What kind of things do you go through as a DM that
there's a lot of
could stress
that,
you out?
right? I would say it's mostly mindset things. Like you can call a problem 20 different things, and when I get an email about whether it's a rate thing, whether it's an underwriting thing, I mean, we get ones on call centers and all this stuff, right? It all comes down to mindset because you can get through anything if you have the right mindset. My team loves to remind me too, you can get through nothing if you have the wrong mindset too. You can stop yourself dead in your tracks. So it's important for me when somebody has a problem not to just jump in the mud with them, rather throw the rope and pull out, right? Help them get out of that muck and mire of like, man, my computer's not working today. How am I going to do this? Like, I have 5 quotes to do, and it's like, no, let's pivot. Like, let's get 5 more quote sheets. Let's do whatever we can, control the controllables. And trust me, like I'm saying this right now, but I need to be reminded of it all the time. Like my Jess and Dakota and Christina, Scott here at my district office, they're so good for me because they remind me of this stuff. Because I'd love to tell you that I'm just the model of it. These guys constantly, you need it refreshed in your head every day.
That's so true. Yeah, I read somewhere recently that said like if you could be in a bad reason for no reason, then you could be in a good mood for no reason. It's like our choice to just okay, why not just be in a good mood right now. So I think it is true. It is about mindset. Well, tell me a little bit about your team. So you went there not really knowing anybody and you kind of like built it, or how's your district team like? How'd you put that together?
Yeah, I knew nobody, and I went from being a really good staffed as an agent to probably the worst, terrible staffed as a district manager. And when I started, the old district manager was willing to stay on for a period of time, Kim Ashby, who I give her a ton of credit. On her way out, she said, "Hey, you need to hire this kid." And I'm like, "Who does that?" Right? So I give Kim a ton of credit there. But so one of my first hires just didn't work. We'll put it there, like like some hires do. Then my next one, I hit the jackpot, right? I got Jessica Lohman, who is my assistant district manager here, and I would say that she was a solve it all, right? If I needed help in recruiting, she was there to help. If I needed help on training and systems and helping agency owners. She was there to help because she's been an agent with another company. So it was cool, like having that talent right away. And over time, we built a team. It was not easy. I joke because my president's council year, like the year they put up in lights, right? I fired 7 people on my staff during that time, right? That doesn't sound like
Oh wow.
a great thing, right? But it was because we got through, we really expect results. We held people accountable. And now we have the best team that I could ever hope for. It's just I'm blessed more than I deserve sometimes with these guys. Like they truly, as you can tell, they give me a lot.
Well, congratulations on President's Council for making it so early in your career.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, no, well, I've had good mentors, so I consider myself a DM protege, if you will.
Yeah. Now, so you fire seven. I think that's a good thing to for people to understand maybe is that so how many staff members do you have right now?
So I'm five.
Five. And how many people did you go through to have your five right now?
Uh, well, over the last 4 years, I would say I've terminated 9 or 10 individuals.
Yes, maybe a little bit more have quit or
So about half, it was a good result, and they found things they were more passionate about, right? So had one that wanted to be an actuary, right? Not a good fit in sales and recruiting when you want to do a spreadsheet. Nothing against actuaries, they're great people. But another one that wanted to do social media, she actually started her own company. So that was awesome. But we had a lot of others that didn't hit the mark, and those were the hardest ones, right? Because you like them, they're good people, but at the same time, you have to be able to pull that trigger and say, hey, I need results. I got to make this. This is a business decision. And it's hard balancing the personal and business decisions because what I don't want is just that corporate like feel of like, okay, we're just going to fire anybody that doesn't exactly hit the mark without really pouring into them and going a little bit beyond what a corporate culture would. But at the same time, I want to be able to hold people accountable. So it was a struggle.
yeah. But the good thing, I think, a lesson there is that you didn't settle and you looked for new people and if they weren't hitting the mark, you did pull the trigger and you kept on looking. And that's something as agents too. Um, Agents could struggle with too, like it's hard to find somebody, so I'm just gonna keep somebody even though they're not really doing that great, but at least they, making not excuses for them, but settling for not a best performer. What do you think is one of the biggest constraints when it comes to recruiting? Maybe the DM or agent side, like what do you think is the biggest problem we face?
I would say both on the agent and DM side, it's what's in it for them, right? We're very tuned into what's in it for us. So we know, oh, well, if we find somebody, it's going to be this much premium, this much lift, right? Where they're focused on like, hey, do I get Saturdays and Sundays off? Do I get benefits? And like just go down the list, whatever is important to them. And that's where I would talk about to any agency owner, hey, figure out really early on in that interview process what is important to this person. Is it to be number one? Is it to make sure they have every vacation possible? Oh, you got the motion sensor lights there. That's cool. Uh, but long story short, with those, I would say figure out what's important to the candidate, right? Too many times we focus on what's in it for us and we just say, here's the opportunity. It's the best thing since sliced bread and take it or leave it. You got to in today's age go through and figure out who you have on your hands too, because it's that much better. Like when you have that person and you're in the foxhole, if you will, and you're talking about, hey, we need to get X, Y, and Z done. Well, you might know, hey, they love Disney World. Let's give you a Disney World incentive if we hit a huge number, right? All these different things, but all that to say, the candidates base it around them, not necessarily the opportunity.
Well, yeah, that's a great way to look at it. What's in it for them, that's not just what's in it for us looking for people. What would you say, Keith, is like your number one role as a DM right now?
So that's a loaded question, but I would say we ask for two things, and I know you'll appreciate this, Dan. We ask for more and better. So we only ask for two things, and I say you do one to get the other because at some points in my career we have really we want to be as selective as possible. We want the best candidates, right? Well, come to find out, when you talk to every candidate, what you end up finding is you can't pick them. Some of my best agents are former bag rats, they're butchers. I myself went to nursing school at some point, right? And so all down the line, you can't say this background directly translate into the perfect agent. The next piece, I would say, on the better side, as you're getting more better, an agency's able to sustain more, right? So we're talking more premium, more staff, and then more lines of business to focus on too. Because I feel so many new agents, they get into the property and casualty, and that's their bread and butter, and it should be, it'll sustain you, but you really want to diversify as quickly as possible to life and Medicare and all those things that really help those retention and really have those larger margins, if you will. And it's taboo to talk about, but you really want to departmentalize your agency over time too to protect it. Because God forbid, say, hey, like all commercial insurance is not great. Well, then you got to be able to pivot, right? And you don't want to start from scratch on that line of business when you're pivoting. So if you have departments, you're able to lean more into one or the other over time.
So do you see yourself spending a lot of time with your agents in this type of like strategy sessions or trainings?
Yeah, I'm an addict for talking about it too, because we'll text like 7, 8, 9 o'clock at night and just talk about different ideas, right? Because a lot of them are trying to hire recruiters right now, and that's something. If you asked me 13 years ago when I joined Farmers that a bunch of agency owners would be interested in recruiters, I would have told you back then, oh, that's the district's job, right? Like that would have just been my closed-minded 21-year-old self going, oh, okay. When you look at it in totality, if an agent has a recruiting department at that point, think of how much capability that multiplies into the other lines of business, right? They can clear up admin. It can be applicable to service as well. There's so many different things you can do with it. So I've just been impressed with the mindsets of the really aggressive growing agents because they're doing things I never would have thought of, right? But I'm there to just fuel the flame, if you will. That is my role. Really get behind good ideas, and let's take it to the 10th extent and figure out what works on it, what doesn't, and tweak it.
But yeah, speaking of big ideas, you were mentioned to me one of your big goals. Oh,
Yeah.
if you could share that with us.
Oh yeah. So my team's challenged with me with being the most known Minnesota insurance person in well, Minnesota rather. And I love that challenge because I don't even know what that means, right? But so it's something I can keep chasing and go after. And I know that it helps us so many of my other goals too, right? Like we want to launch a certain number of agents, we want to help a certain number of proteges. And as we get up and they see me talking about these things on a great podcast like yours, they I know that a lot of them are readers and they get into books, things of that nature. They watch insurance podcasts and they want to grow aggressively. Dan, I don't know if you're big about the law of attraction, but
Oh yeah.
I believe wholeheartedly, like I want to attract those people around me that are just like insanely addicted to this opportunity, what it can give you, and all the great things that come with it. It's just I probably sound like a preacher at some point, but it's awesome. Like it's great.
No, I love the energy. I love the energy. And you had some pretty big premium numbers that you goals too that you messaged me too when
Oh
we
yeah.
were going back and forth. Yeah, that's some
Oh yeah.
exciting stuff. What?
I want to be the first billion premium district in Farmers because I believe that can happen. I know that it's going to take things that I haven't even thought of yet. And one of my favorite books that I read, I've read two that really impacted me in my business career as a district. One was Buy Back Your Time by Dan Martell. Awesome book. Like restructured my staff after I got it. The other one was 10x is easier than 2x, right? Because the one thing that I call myself out on is I was just about more, 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 more. Let's just figure out how we can get 8 interviewers in here and do as many as possible. Well, when you think more constructively, and what would it take for us to get 10x these results instead of 2x these results? Now my operation is moving much differently than it would have had. So even if I fall short, if you will, which I don't believe will happen, I think we'll hit way past it, just manifesting that. It's going to be cool because I know that my team will operate at a 10x capacity. I know that like everything around me will have operated better because I aim towards that instead of just like, oh, well, I want to get to 100 or 150, 200, because that's already been done too, right? What's exciting about something that's already been done?
Wow. What's the largest you've heard?
Well, I know there's Greg Wyndham out there. He's a pretty big district. I know, well, obviously Matt. There's a few others. I would imagine, like if I had to guess, I don't have any concrete numbers, but I'd have to guess it's between 250 and 300 right now.
And you're going for a billion.
Oh yeah, oh, yeah, and it's audacious, and I probably don't deserve to like throw it out there, but I'm going after it, man. Like we're going.
Well, yeah, that's well because you have to manifest it. You have to you can't keep it a secret. You have to
Heck
you
yeah.
actually have to like remind yourself too. Those are two great books, by the way, that I really enjoyed. Two of my favorites too. Yeah, Buy Back Your Time is such a great book. It just um yeah, I think and then 10x is better is easier than 2x. That's a great book too because it just makes you understand what is the biggest constraint of the business. What is unlocking. You just spend all your time working on the biggest, most important things.
Hmm.
But how does what are the activities you think that will get you to those goals, the most
I
important
well,
ones?
the first one that I found in like what we had to change was my expectations because I think I was a nihilist in some sense. Like I was always planning like I'll put on agents, but I don't want to plan on them doing tremendous amounts of the new business because like I think that's most people. They just want to play it safe and you just plan on that. Well, I get to talk to a really good DM named Mike Vandermeulen, who's amazing, right? The guy, when you talk to him, he just breathes expectations and accountability. So when you talk to him, it'll seem matter of fact on some of these, like, oh yeah, you should hit 100,000. You want to keep the lights on, like, just stuff. Like I know he takes for granted now, but at the same token, he's installed such a good system in his district that I look at it and I try to replicate parts of it. And he's been so giving with his time and helping mentor me because I'll pick his brain and like, do you think it was different from year one to year three? And do you think you coach him better? And the thing I gathered from him, whether it be from an agent level or a district level, he said spell it out. Like make sure you're telling them from A to Z how to do it. Because I think so many, whether it be a district or an agent, you go to an agent level and you tell a producer, hey, I need you to sell 50,000. Well, what kind of leads are they working? What are they saying? Like, what's their script look like? Are they selling transactionally or relationship? Are they like uh, going down the line where he really will spell it out A to Z as much as he can and make it easier on that agency owner? And I think that's why he's having such an impact in our business is really going through and almost making it like where we're an opportunity of box maybe without the box, and he's really made it with a box and directions and everything. I give Mike a lot of credit for that.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. It's like one thing to say just sell more insurance, but it's like how? It's like spell it out. Like, just start off with like turn on the computer, go to this website. Like it just has to be like really detailed to that point. Then you're really helping somebody. Um, so yeah, you really surround yourself with good people. Yeah, Mike is the beast, the DM of the year.
Oh yeah.
Um, what about when you say holding your agents accountable? Does that, in what way can, uh, and as an agency owner, with producers, same kind of thing there with that it's our jobs to hold them accountable. What are some ways to do that as far as like, would it be like sharing numbers or like having talks with them? What's your tone on how to do that? Like, what's your tips on holding your agents accountable?
Yeah, well, there's got to be an agreement there first, right? I think that's important to hit on because I have agency owners that don't have any goals, don't want to be talked to, like, and and they're allowed to because they're independent contractors. They can navigate their business how they see fit. The other ones, it's like, okay, if I know you want to get to 1 million premium a month, we're gonna have to figure out what do you want your close ratio to be? What do you want your number of people to be? The cool thing about our industry, Dan, and I know you appreciate this probably more than a lot of others, is it's very formulaic in the sense that any piece of whether it be staff members or leads, close ratio, we just have to figure out which piece of the puzzle isn't fitting and adjust, either turn it up or turn it down based on where we either have a surplus or a lack. And I love that because it's I always use the funnel example. You can usually see in the funnel, if it's the top of the funnel, it's usually effort, right? It's just number of reps. And if it's closer to the bottom, it's usually a skill problem. Like it's like, okay, we're not asking for the close the right way. Maybe we're timid asking, assuming the quote, things of that nature. Uh, so I get in the nitty gritty too. I love mixing it up in cold calling with brand new producers too. Seeing the looks on their face of like, oh my God, he's doing it. Like yeah, it's it's fun, and if you want to keep that ability good too, because it's just the art of conversation.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great stuff. Yeah, looking at the metrics, right, and figuring out where is the issue. I think that is a great thing about our business because it's everything's like something we could solve.
Mm.
There's gonna be there's a part where something is not working, but understanding what their agents want and then you go into them and say, "Hey, let me help you figure it out." It's so much better than like, "Hey, you got to do your job because I want to, because I'm your manager."
Oh yeah, and I'll add this part, Dan. So there's got to be that long-term thinking too, right? On top of that agreement. One thing I admire about you is I remember watching a video of you saying, I know who I is ready to lose with me." Right? I remember you did that video, and that was so impactful to me because I'm like, yeah, that's exactly. And I've seen others go through tough times, and we've all seen the producers that blow in, blow up, and blow out, right? But the ones that are really mindful of this, take care of their teams, they're in it for the long term. Yeah, this year or this month might have not been the best for them, but they took care of whoever was around them and really helping them. And they thought in long-term thinking. I've always seen that whenever you least expect it, it comes back two, threefold.
You're absolutely right. And yeah, thanks for checking that video out. I think not only for producers too, like, the ones that are willing to lose with you are the ones I want to win with, but also
Mm.
as, di ma district managers and agents too, like if the company is going through a difficult time, then we have to show that we're willing to lose with them too, so we could win with them win with them. So I do believe in thinking about long term and not just jumping ships when things get hard. I think those are important lessons that we've kind of went through. But how's the market in Minnesota? Is it pretty good?
Oh, it's so good, in my opinion. Like
Oh yeah.
again, I look at it and I look how lucky we are. So when I get to it, if anything, I would pick on us for not quoting enough and taking more advantage of it because I think we have a lot of area for growth. Um, we're positioned well. We just got to get enough people to make the calls, get in there, really target every area. So it's exciting though. Like it's part of why I came up here because there's just such an opportunity. Minnesota, I would say, is one of the best markets, and I hope to continue to like help make it the best market selfishly.
Yeah. No, yeah, that's great. I think it's great to understand that. And I think sometimes when the market is great and it hasn't been bad for some agents, they don't see that it's like such a great opportunity right now. So that's something I could share, is that, markets change. So when it's good, it's like, oh man, when it was good, and even though I was going hard when it's good, it's like I could have even gone harder. And so when it's good, I think it's really time to expand and get aggressive there because it may not be that way forever. But yeah, it's good that he has the mindset of like, hey, I have a lot of control in my state. So if I write business as a district in and go after good business and responsibly grow, then that's gonna help the whole company as a whole stay profitable there and do well there.
Oh yeah, and there's different dynamics to it too, right? Because you have the TCPA stuff coming down, so now on top of a level of Minnesota, now there's this whole level of do I buy data leads now or do I buy live transfers? Do I what do I do with my old lists? Like those type of things, I get asked those a dime a dozen now. And I would say the people that are really going to benefit most from this current climate with everything going on, I think they lean into it, right? Lead prices are probably going to go up, volume's probably going to go down, but those that are really going to bear down and buy some more at the higher prices, I mean, call it like it is. It's almost like somebody in Monopoly buying up all the board. You're
Mm.
really taking the pieces that might have went to another producer in the beginning. Now it's in your agency. Yes, you're spending more, but it's lower cost per acquisition of customer too.
Yeah, because the competition might be getting weaker too.
Hmm.
Wow. Yeah, really good stuff, Keith. It sounds like you really get into the weeds.
Oh yeah,
You
like
know, maybe it's just like the way I seen things with DMs is like, which maybe depending on, the tenor and stuff like that, it could be not so into like, you know, the agent's duties or what we face through or like these new technology and just, staying up to date. But for you to be actually on the phone making those calls and then understanding all the, technical aspects of the business, that is something that is really refreshing because maybe it's just a different California just so mature and the DMs I don't say age, but I don't know. What do you think about that as far as like just really being involved in like and knowing what the agents go through?
so I'll say it this way. I know I'm different. In that like I still feel like I'm an agent at heart. Like I never want to lose that feeling. Just because I know at the heart of our company, like and I think Raul says it great that the agent will be the center of everything, right? We're building around agent and the agent culture. And you look at everybody freaked out about realty about 10, 15 years ago, and it was going to go all digital and they were going to be able to buy houses online. It didn't happen. There's some parts of our just what you deal with that you can't automate, and that's really trust and friendship. And when you get to automating that, you kind of lost humanity, right? I mean, that's philosophical, but going back to kind of how I view it, I love to know all the pieces and the parts and get down in and see how everything's working because you really see what I call the rate determining step, and not necessarily rate on a price, but more so how fast can this transaction go? How deep are we getting in this transaction? Things that matter for the long term, because if you're just selling one item in a house, you're probably not going to keep it long, right? Now, if we're taking 2 hours on each call, that's not a great position to be in either if we're not doing our job. Why I say all that is I do think there's a new crop of DMs for farmers coming in that will be much different as well, think different, which is exciting. Uh, but as long as they're good people and they're getting in there, there's so many different ways to do it. I would love to tell you I love the way I do it, but there's so many people that do it different ways, and it's going to be cool to see.
It's gonna be great to see. It's very exciting. One of the things that is just is so important, I feel, is that you just have to know, you just have to be capable. You just have to know what's going on. you know? And it just sounds like if you think of yourself as an agent, that's even better because you just could relate a lot more to what the agents are going through, and you actually know the challenges of what the agents are going through. So that's a great perspective, and that energy is very refreshing for me to see as a DM.
Oh, well, and yeah, no, and there's so many good ones out there too. Like that's another thing is I pull things from guys all the time that I wouldn't have ever thought, oh, try this or that, or they know a thing or two because they've seen a thing or two, right? It's it's so true.
Well, the things I see from you is back to kind of like, your goal of being the best known Minnesota insurance person is your social media.
Okay.
So yeah, I want to acknowledge you for your sense of humor. They're great. It's really difficult. Social media, I mean, from my experience, it's just really difficult to um, get attention by just insurance information because nobody cares. But
Yeah.
being funny, that's providing value to somebody. It's like, oh, okay, now I'll check this out because it's like this person's funny. But it's so hard to do. But you do it in a way, and I get your sense of humor too. Um, but share us a little bit of what your strategy is there, and if you've seen any effects from putting yourself out there.
Yeah, and it's funny you say that, Dan, because like I have so many people. I think for anybody that's dabbling in social media, what I would say is just go harder, because you won't even see the results. Is my 2 cents. Because I have so many people comment to me in real life in over texting like, "Hey, I loved your video," and I didn't know that they liked it or watched it because Facebook doesn't tell you everybody that watches it or TikTok or one of those. The other piece too is I used to be like a 12 take guy. Like, okay, we need to rehearse, we need to redo this, that. And now I've gotten to the point where it's like I've really used two methods, and it's like the camcorder method, like document just whatever we're doing that day and let's have fun with it. Or, hey, we found something kind of stupid and funny. Let's just let's show this to other people in our audience because we think this is kind of funny. So like we did one like Charlie the Unicorn type thing, and the team that was their favorite video, and so the team loves it too, right? So that's a more fun part of it. Uh, Going back to the meat of it, I would just say do more. I don't do enough, honestly, on it. I don't post enough as much as I should. Like I watched guys like Nick Saka and a few others where I'm just like, okay, like they're doing awesome things. I gotta start replicating some of that.
Yeah, yeah, it's a lot of fun, and I really enjoy making content too. What would you say if someone said like, okay, but how much does it impact your business? But I think you said something really important there. It's like don't expect anything right away.
Mm.
I think that's so important. Like you can't make a post about it and people aren't going to start calling you or starting wanting to work with you.
Oh yeah, and I don't think anybody cares about insurance, right? Like I'm self-aware enough to know if I posted about insurance all day, every day, if I posted about coverages or our opportunity, I'd have like the same five people, which are probably the people on my team like it, right? But when you do fun things that are totally unrelated to insurance or they're kind of adjacent and you're like shoehorning it, right? I did one about I don't know how to change a tire, but I can change your career. Like people get a huge kick out of that because you're self-deprecating, right? Well, I would just say pivot it and don't feel like you have to make it all about insurance. Like I know you probably watch Gary V a little bit. Like I
Yeah.
know his big advice to so many of those guys. Like I watch where he'll just sit down with like 10 people at a time and they'll be very like, well, do you think I should do educational or do you think I should do that? And he's like, just do whatever's getting attention, man. Like do funny stuff. And it's funny because it's almost like I'll watch a new one thinking, oh, I'm gonna hear something new and insightful. And he is, but it's always that same thing. Like do what gets attention and then pivot that intention into what you're doing. Because if people go to your profile and they see farmers insurance, right? They're gonna know, hey, you're an insurance person or somehow tied to the company. They don't have to ask what you do or that or this or that, but they do remember that cool video that you posted like a month from now.
Yeah. Has anything come from your content as far as like directly? Have you
Believe it or not,
noticed?
an agent from another company um, like has talked to us about uh, really capitalizing on the farmers opportunity because of it. We've had a couple reach out because of it, and one that was really serious about the opportunity said, "Hey, I've watched all your videos. I need to sit down and talk with you. Here's where I'm at with my other company. Here's what I've seen you post. Can you tell me more about this?" And it's been cool. But usually, like that was, I mean, I'd love to tell you that I've been doing it for 2 or 3 years, and I feel like that was the first time we've gotten it. We've probably got other stuff. I think we just don't see a lot directly tied to it. Because the other thing I keep cognizant too is the first thing anytime somebody's applying to a job or they're going to shop for insurance. They usually search people. Like we all go on Facebook and we all go on LinkedIn or whatever and search and do our little bit of research, right? Like they call it Facebook stock for a reason. They go on there and they go, oh, okay, this is this person. So I know that happens, and I know it probably adds to our brand.
Yeah, it does. It definitely does. It's just it's so hard to measure what impact it's making. But for
Mm.
sure, I mean, no one could do business with you if they don't know you exist. So you just have to put yourself out there and then yeah, people search. It just helps with like building trust too, because it's just you're just transparent, you're just putting yourself out there like, hey, this is what I do, this is who I am, this is how I talk, this is my office, this is my staff. And people just feel like, okay, this person has nothing to hide. It's like I see his personality. And that's kind of how it's worked with me. Like, me talking to you, this is the first time we had a conversation, but I already feel like, I kind of, get that, you have a great sense of humor and, making fun of yourself and that means you're humble and, some of the success you've also had and stuff like that, showing off your staff's, personality and stuff like that. I think it's great for business, and I really recommend all agencies and agent DMs to do that because, yeah, no one can do business with you unless they know you exist.
So Dan, selfishly, I want to kind of turn this interview like towards you now because I'm always wanting to pick the brain of like really good agents, and like I think you're top of our industry. So, what are some of your big goals? Like, how does your mind like work? Where you're like, are you trying to get a certain amount of premium? Are you trying to get a certain amount of staff, or where are you at with everything, and where do you want to go?
Oh, that's a great question, Keith. I used to really be into those type of numbers. Like for the longest time, it was like 20 staff, 20 staff. That was, and I got there, a couple years ago. And then premium and then like revenue and stuff like that. But I think one of the things that got me in trouble is that if you get a little over ambitious at times, that then for the first time ever in my career, you could actually outspend the revenue, you know? So what's
Oh
the
yeah.
point of making like, tons of money if you're spending more than that to get it? So I always thought there's gonna be some sort of margin left, but the market could change, commission could change, a lot of things could change. So even though things weren't favorable, I still wanted to push and like still grow every year because I've done that for the last 17 years. So I think my shift has been a little bit more like an insurance agency where it's like insurance company where it's like, okay, well, we could sell a lot of insurance, but if we're not profitable, then what's the point? So my focus has been a little bit more on um, profitability for the agency. It's like back to the basics. Like, okay, we gotta make money here. We gotta be in a healthy situation because in the long run, I want to be able to take care of my people better. So we've had to cut back, make some, comp plan changes, things like that. So it hasn't been, well, still fun. I wouldn't say it hasn't been fun. It's been challenging, something new, but I think it's just made me more responsible, looking at numbers deeper. And yeah, just the goal is to be more healthier and be able to put ourselves in a situation when the market's right. And it's really getting there too in California too, to really
Mm.
uh be able to be in a good situation. I just want to keep as many people as possible. And but yeah, with your conversation, now you're switching my mind back into thinking like really big again. So I appreciate that. But getting back to profitability is probably step number one.
Okay. And so like again, I'm fascinated by like how different people think. So do you go profitability per producer? Do you just take it as the agency, say, hey, we're going to be profitable here and we might be less profitable here? Like how does that like not to dive too deep, but like do you do it at a producer level? Do you kind of go, okay, my marketing's got to be this or like how do you figure that out?
Yeah, no, I do have, you know, it's really important that each producer we have a certain average that we meet, because that if I think look at it like each producer is getting them the same base. If one's running 100K and then I have three others running 33K, it's like it's that I'm only paying one base for that one producer, you know? So it's like it's so much better to have top producers. So the bottom ones I have to really get up or maybe not have it work out and I have a big time struggling of I'm doing a lot better holding people accountable. You know, I'm terrible at firing. Those are things that I'm trying to get better at. So those are some of the questions I was asking you to, pick your brain on that when it comes to accountability. But I've gotten a lot better. Well, actually, I've had somebody else kind of do it for me, because I'm too positive and I just don't want to like hurt someone's feelings. But then I try to be so kind to my team, but then I look at it like, well, if I'm not telling them that they're not doing their job, in a way, telling them is being nicer to them.
Mm,
Because like a true friend will tell you like, hey, something's your teeth, like something's your teeth, like you should take that out. But like so I have systems in place. We keeping metrics like daily numbers, like if you're not on the phone like 3 hours a day, didn't do 5 quotes, it didn't sell two policies, like you had to do two out of the three. So we send out emails, and then like as soon as 3 days in a row, none of those things were hit. It's called a win-loss report, but 3 days in a row you don't hit it, then we have a meeting, a redirection meeting. It's only 15 minutes. Then it's like 4 days, and it comes to me and stuff like that. So we kind of have systems in place there to just make sure we don't have any low producing agents that are on the payroll without any results. So those are the type of things that I'm working on to help help the agency become profitable. What about you for your district? Do you look at that type of stuff, or are you just thinking just grow, grow,
yeah.
grow?
Well, no, so you're locked tight, man. Like I hear you talk and you're like every 3 days. I have these guys go, I try to do every 2 weeks. Like because the biggest thing I key in on is like our activity's got to be there first, right? Because I let them have some rope for some new producers that are a little bit more green to our industry get growing. But I'm a big thing on premium's got to be there. We got to have the quoting activity and the dials, right? And if you have those three things, you can figure out where the skill problem is. But until the effort's there and those numbers are taken care of, I don't care what we're talking about. I'm like, okay, effort's the problem. Because I have so many people that like an agent will come up to me and be like, oh, so and so is not doing well, but I think she'll make it. And it's like, oh, well, tell me more. And I'm like, how many dials did she make? And it's like 10. And I'm like, what does she do with the rest of her day? And I'm like, right? Because ten dials maybe takes you maybe not even half hour if nobody answers. So really getting through that, and especially guys that have never owned a business before too, right? Because you put in context for them, what might be a great producer and a bad producer might look the same to them, and that's astonishing to me. So it's really getting them in the good perspective, because I don't know that there's been any great mega producers in Minnesota yet. I think there will be, but just getting in that frame of like a Vlad, a Dan, where they're trying to hit 250, 500,000, a million premium every month because they can and they know it can be done. It's just a math equation at the end of the day.
Yeah, it is a math equation. It's a great business to be in, because we can't sell out of this stuff. There's no inventory. What are you mentioned dials, but what are some of the metrics that you really like to have your agents focus on besides dials?
I do profit
Quotes.
per producer, so I want them to bake me a business plan per producer because I want them to always know what their break even is. Kind of like you talked about. There's got to be that average that they feel comfortable on. And usually for most of them, I can get it down to a single premium number, right? And they know this is what we got to have for the month. This translates into this many households if we're doing it right. Quotes, dials, and I even go back to leads too, right? Because right now, my agents and I are having really good conversations about data leads versus live transfers. Like, because I see one way or the other, just spoiler, like I see live transfers for most people being way better because the follow up and other things usually suffer within an agency unless they have a trained marketing department or call center, if you will, that really are dialed in. For a lot of new agents, those live transfers, yeah, they might have a higher sticker price, but it's way cheaper on the back end.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, it's not how much the lead costs, but it's how much the acquisition cost.
Yeah, well said.
Mhm. Yeah. those are good, great metrics, man. Yeah, it's a great DM, Keith, for you to be leading your agents that type of information, looking at it, looking at the right things to look at. I think that's something that
Well,
you know, it's I I sometimes like, because you were with Matt too, and you kind of mentioned it too, like sometimes you don't know any different, but it's good for agents to know there that not all DMs are the same. And
yeah,
sometimes when you
yeah.
have a good one, you don't even know. So I hope your
Well,
agents know.
I appreciate that. That means a lot. And it come from you, man, because I know you have a good one, and like I take that to heart. So thank you. But I look at it too, and like it makes me sad that some other people aren't having this conversation just with anybody getting into our industry. Forget just farmers, like our whole industry. Somebody starting a business and they don't have anybody to talk to about lead cost or this or that. And it's kind of that old model, right? Where most of these carriers were, I'm just going to have one person write the heck out of business. Like it was probably the same when you and I joined, where a lot of them, it was just sell, 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 and they got up to about 1 million or 1.5 million in premium. Well, then they had to service themselves to death, right? Because they weren't hiring staff, they weren't doing the right things. It was a means to an end. And that's where I think farmers really got ahead of the ball with a lot of the programs they've had. And they really instituted the staffing being just dialed in. And that's where if somebody ever pushes back on stuff, I'm like, no, no, no. Like, forget the number that's on that paper. We need this many, right? Like this many is going to sustain us, get us to where we want to go. Um, one thing that both Greg Wyndham and Mike Vandermeulen like have taught me in a great way is like forget whatever goals other people are setting for you. Like go set yours 3 or 4 times higher at least for that.
Nice. Well, how many agents would you think it'll take to get to that big number?
That's a great question. And I've done the math before because I've done different models too, right? Where you have like 100 mega agents. Like um, I think most realistically, I want to like my aspirations are to get to 150 agents. And has it been done? I don't know. But I'm gonna darn sure try and make it happen and whatever permutations that looks like along the way too. Heck, if it was, I rather, and I say this to agents all the time, I rather have 10 that are 10 deep in staff than 100 agents that are just one deep.
Hmm.
The 10 that are 10 deep are so much better and could outsell, outservice, right? And I tell the story of the 20-man band versus the one-man band, right? Because you say in a 20-man agency, how often is the agency owner usually selling? Probably close to none, right? If they're doing it right and they're managing. Okay, how much are they servicing? Probably close to none if they're doing it right and they have a service department. You go down that list and it's none most of the time. Well, in a one-person agency, how much of the selling are they doing? 100% of it. How much are they doing of the servicing? 100%. And then you go down the list and it's 100%. And it's like, which life do you want to live? Right? Do you want to live the business owner that's, yes, it's a giant responsibility, but you have a great business that is operating autonomously? Or do you want to have this where you have basically a ball and chain and you're working yourself to death?
Yeah, which one's gonna grow too?
Yeah,
You just are spread so thin, you just can't even think to on your business to grow. Where
100%.
if you're building systems and you have 10 people, then you just have all your time is spent on like strategy and implementation and you know, um recruiting and well even recruiting could be, a department too. But it's just I think from a DM's perspective, that's a great way to look at it. It's like not really how many agents you have, but how many appointments in
Mm-hmm.
your district.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and the one with 10 agents, you just know that agent's gonna be around for much longer.
Be much happier usually too.
Yeah, yeah. Wow, good stuff, Keith. What are some of your getting near the end here, but I want to ask you something that I'm kind of thinking about all the time here, and I'm just spreading my team, this message
Yeah.
about principles, you
Yeah.
know? What are some of your core principles, would you say, as how you like to operate your district?
Well, we go by the three I's: intensity, integrity, and intelligence. Like I preach those because I want my team to be intense, right? And not so much that we're just gonna break down and like if everything's like make or break, but more so like everything matters, right? So we actually have a meme that we toss around in the office where it's a Rick and Morty meme where the more is it's Rick, he creates a robot to pass butter. And then the butter realizes, what is my purpose? And he tells him it's to pass butter. Then the robot goes, oh my God, it's to pass butter. Reason I tell that whole story is because many times what we can feel like is like we're passing butter. We're just doing a transaction. We're just doing the things that like it's just like to move the needle. It lacks purpose. Really, what I want for my whole team is to have purpose in what they do. And man, there's times where I go home and it's like hard to not to tear up because an agent will text us and saying like, "Hey, just sold that household that was like $1,000 more because I did this," or staff member like is working out and they really bought into this or that marketing thing. And there's just so many cool moments that like it means so much to the team because they'll wade through four other harder, more I shouldn't say terrible things, but more like not fun things to get to one of those moments. And it's just so rewarding when it happens. And I think that gives you the sense of purpose. But we want to do it intelligently too. So go into that and doing it the right way too. Because we've seen so many people in our business try to cut corners, make compromises on, okay, this is okay, so we'll just do it. And it catches up over time. We really want to make sure that each one of our agents is doing it the right way. I more so scare more people out of this business than into it because I tell them, like, hey, there's no cutting corners. It's going to be hard work, half days, 7 to 7 or 8 to 8. Like, and long story, I say all that um, to say those are kind of our three key principles. I would add a bonus in there that we've really gotten better in the last couple of years, and that's staying positive. Just because throughout it all, I'll call myself out. I was probably the first one to be negative or focus on whatever um, the screaming thing was in the room and the problem or the goal at hand, even right. And the goal is supposed to be the exciting thing. Well, when it comes down to that, that can be draining. You can get burnt out. I would say always to stay positive, right? Find what fulfills you. Start with gratitude, and a lot of it sounds like kind of hocus pocus at times. But I would tell anybody, like, no, just sit down and think of what you're grateful for. You're not going to be mad. You're not going to be like out of sorts. You're gonna feel good going into your day. And I force myself now, like I go gratitudes, and then I remind myself, hey, I'm in a good spot. Worked hard for this position, used to want this position so badly and still do. And like make it matter that much more, right? Because whether you're an agent, whether you're a district manager, whether you're a producer, it can all like one of your producers could insure somebody today, right? That their house could burn down, and that was the most important transaction in that person's life. That's heavy, right? Like that's a huge thing. Uh, So just knowing that, like every day matters, what you're doing matters. Probably going way too deep, but I don't know if that's.
No, I love it, man. You answered it so instantaneously too. Like you knew what your core principles were right away. That just means that your team knows too. It's easy to remember. I love that part too.
Oh
It
yeah.
all starts with the I, the bonus positivity. But yeah, intensity, integrity, and intelligence. I, yeah, those are great ones. And just an overarching theme of like how you operate and what you believe in. And I think it just helps us be very consistent and predictable in our behaviors when you have those principles. So that was great stuff, Keith, that you were just able to like say it and like with that much passion. That just means that you're just locked in as far as like what you believe in, and how you're
Oh,
gonna grow your business. So yeah, I want to just acknowledge you for just being yeah, super. I mean, I was gonna say future superstar, but already a superstar in this business, and someone that's really gonna make a huge contribution to where the company, not just the state, but where the company is gonna go. So it was great. I feel so energized talking to you.
Oh.
And yeah, I hope a lot of people are able to watch this, especially DMs. But a lot of people watch this and see what it takes to you know become next big thing in the insurance business. So
Well, and
looking forward
I
to keep in touch with you, man. Yeah.
likewise, and I hope you keep putting out content. Dude, I don't watch any TV. I watch like your stuff. I watch Nick Saka, like Cody Askins, all those ones where I can like gleam, okay, these guys are in here doing it exactly, dealing with the same stuff I'm doing. What are they seeing? And it's nice to be with a relatable figure because sometimes you watch those motivational stuff. So like I'm a big Tony Robbins guy and I'm a big love seeing Grant Cardone and all those guys. But when you see somebody that like it's like you're the real deal doing it in real time with farmers, it's so cool. So I appreciate what you do too, man. I appreciate you.
Yeah, no, thank you. Yeah, I think there's a little bit more relatability, with
Hmm.
amongst ourselves, because we really understand what we go through, and also respect factor too, because we both know how hard it is to do what we do. So, yeah, I really enjoyed our conversation, Keith. We're gonna keep in touch, and once you get start getting closer, I mean, I know it's a long-term project there, but I want to have you on the show. I don't care how many years it is, but once you hit that
Heck
number,
yeah.
or before then, we should do a check-in to see how you're doing with your progress. So. Looking forward to witnessing your progress, Keith, and yeah, we'll stay in touch.
I appreciate you.